What makes a good movie? Let's talk about it. There's a lot of things that go into making a movie. You've got the pre-production, you've got the lights, props, cameras, all of the gear. So many things go into making a movie. But one of the main things that we typically talk about in mainstream media is the acting, directing, and writing. None of these things work independently of each other, but I think a lot of times people tend to talk about one or the other. They usually don't talk about all three in conjunction to each other. So today, let's talk about all three of these and look at how they all work together to make one movie. First off, the writing. The script is the very foundation of a movie. No script, no movie. The script is essentially the first step in a game of telephone. You have the writer who writes their story. Down the line, the directors take their interpretation of it and feed it to the actors, and the actors present their version of it. While a lot of people have influence over how the script is told, bad writing is bad writing. There are two main aspects within a script that I want to talk about. First, we have the plot, and secondly, we have the dialogue. Both things can make or break a movie. I think typically what's more obvious to the casual viewer is the dialogue. So a lot of times the plot can go a little bit underdeveloped and it can fly with the general audience, whereas dialogue is a lot harder to get past people because we talk and we know how people talk, and if something on screen is not realistic, it stands out to us. The plot of a film is integral to a good movie. The plot can be simple or complex, but the payoff is what counts. Did we leave the movie with more questions than we had answers? Did we get lost in translation because there was so much going on we couldn't figure out the storyline and where we were headed? These are the kind of things that if you leave a movie may mean the plot was underdeveloped or not written very well. Writers go through a lot of troubleshooting and revisions to make their script the best that it can be. The plot and learning how to write the plot is kind of a difficult concept to put into words, so we won't focus on that as much as we will on dialogue. As I said earlier, the audience is usually more in tune with the dialogue as opposed to the plot, so it's a lot easier to get away with a underdeveloped plot as opposed to dialogue. Dialogue is directly picked up by our senses. We hear it and we know when it's not normal or realistic. Therefore, poorly written films stick out. Poorly written dialogue that's unnatural, on-the-nose dialogue, and dialogue that doesn't move the story forward are really easy to pick up on. The actors and directors have direct influence on how the dialogue affects us. The tone, rate of delivery, inflection, all of those things can change the meaning of written text. But even with good directing and great acting, sometimes written dialogue just falls flat. There are also instances in filmmaking that I see pretty often where you don't even need dialogue to move the story forward, and therefore sometimes talking can ruin the flow of the movie. One thing I see a lot is something like this. Boom! Oh my gosh, you scared me. This is a really nitpicky thing that really just stands out to me, but this kind of thing can be said through action. Boom! A really good writer would know how to write this scene and not even need to use dialogue. This is something that can be seen through action. Film is a visual medium, and we don't always need words to convey what's going on. After the script comes the director. In pre-production, when a director is chosen, they are presented a script, and they often will go through the script and kind of interpret its meaning, know what they want to tell through subtext, and have something ready for when they come to production. Directors usually come to a production with an overall vision that they want to take the film. They also tend to have the final say on creative decisions, so they are ultimately in charge of how the camera portrays the story, how the props tell the story, the colors and the lighting tell the story. Another essential function of the director is directing the talent and actors. Some directors are more hands-off than others, and that's okay, but good directors know what they're looking for, and they know how to get the performance out of actors that they need in order to tell the story that they envision. I think it's also important to note that good directors will also work with their actors. They're not going to totally exclude their thoughts and inputs and interpretations of the story. It's kind of a two-way street when they work with the actors to develop the best portrayal and characteristics of the characters in a story. To help you better understand what directing on a film set might look like, here's an example. Officer, please. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't at no party. Great, and cut. Yeah, that was great. Can we try something where, I really want you to try and defend yourself, okay? Yeah, let's go again. At this point, it's up to the actor to make the revisions requested, but we'll get to that in the acting section. In terms of the director, they may ask to do a couple revisions and try some different versions to see what works best according to his interpretation of the script. But overall, it's up to the director to cast the vision and get the actors working towards it. I can see why directing appeals to so many people because it's really fun. It's like a puzzle trying to figure out how to get your actors to portray the thing that you have in mind. And last but not least, let's talk about acting. Movies are seen to be carried on the backs of the actors. We rarely see the writer or director, and therefore the actor is the visual interaction we have with the movie. Often, if the directing or writing is bad, the actor is held responsible. And I hope you can see from what we've talked about already that this is not entirely fair or true. Bad writing can lead to poor source material that is hard for actors to work with, and lack of direction can lead to an incoherent performance, or the actor just doesn't know that what they're doing sucks. So let's go back to our example from earlier and take a look at how a good versus a bad actor can make a big difference in a movie. I really want you to try and defend yourself, okay? Yeah, let's go again. And action. Officer, please. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't at no party. A talented actor who's in tune with these subtleties of acting will know how to take this note and turn it into a new delivery, whereas a less experienced actor may do something like this. Yeah, that was great. Can we try something where, I really want you to try and defend yourself, okay? Oh, yeah, of course. Gotcha. And action. Officer, please. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't at no party. Cut. This is kind of an extreme example, but I think it helps get the point across. Basically what I'm trying to say is actors need to know how to understand the direction that they're given and turn it into something new. Some actors may understand the instruction, but just simply not know how to make a different performance from what they did previously. I've never worked on a film with A-list actors, but I can imagine that this is less of an issue on films with really well experienced actors. I imagine the lack of good acting is probably more of an issue on lower budget films, maybe independent films or films that have children in them. Now that we've looked at writing versus directing versus acting, let's take a look at a couple of movies to see some examples. Let's start with Titanic. Titanic is a classic movie. Millions of people have seen it and adore it. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Director, and Kate Winslet was nominated for Best Actress. It also won the Golden Globes for Best Drama and Best Director, and both Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio were nominated for Best Actor and Actress. So clearly this is a good movie. It's been nominated for many awards, it won many awards, and it's an all-time classic that people love. But you'll notice this was never nominated for any major screenwriting awards. Now, the absence of a nomination or win for a reward is not really a good indicator if a movie is good or bad, because a lot of times there's a lot of lobbying that goes into essentially buying nominations. But if you do a quick Google search of poorly written scripts, Titanic is the one that appears pretty frequently. It has some pretty nonsensical dialogue, and if we're talking in terms of plot, they both could have fit on that door, so. Another movie that I would say has a pretty bad script is The Other Woman. This one's script is more in terms of the plot, because overall I think it was written well in terms of dialogue, and it had really great actors such as Natalie Portman who really brought emotional performances. But the thing that falls flat for me is the script. It has too many things going on. Dealing with grief of losing a child to SIDS, dealing with family trauma that we've taken to a marriage, or being the other woman who essentially steals a husband from his former family. It just has too many things going on that I got lost in translation. And therefore I think it was a pretty bad script. It just wasn't very cohesive, but it also did have great acting and it looked good. So is it a bad movie? Who's to say? In terms of bad acting, I would say a figure that we could look to is Jennifer Lopez. If you're a Jennifer Lopez fan, no hate to you, no hate to her. I personally have just tried to watch a couple of her movies and have just been so uncomfortable trying to watch her act that I just don't think she's a very good actor. It's very forced and emotionless, and I can imagine that as a director, it would be hard to get a desired performance working with her. And now, in terms of bad directing, I just want to say I think it's a little bit harder to know when something is poorly directed versus poorly written or poorly acted. I think the director is kind of the in-between step between the script and the actors, so it is a little bit harder to judge what a director did wrong in order to make or break a film. But one film that comes to mind is To Catch a Killer. Nothing in the film is really presented in a way that leads me to care. The acting is pretty emotionless, and it features some fairly well-known actors who have proven themselves time and again, so I'm not really sure it's an acting issue. One of the seemingly odd directing choices that I noticed was the choice to make Lamarck, the head captain, such an intense figure when the rest of the movie doesn't carry the intensity that he does. There's also a scene where Shailene Woodley's character has some weird revelation from looking at the bathroom ceiling, and directorially, possibly writing-wise, it's just not revealed what breakthrough she had and why the bathroom ceiling revealed that revelation to her. So in the end, acting, directing, and writing all come down to a very fine line when it comes down to the final film. They all work together, and also, art is subjective, so one thing that I like may not be what you like. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!